Hey, how's it going, guys? RhinoRatesMusic here, and in this video, we're going to be doing a review of the brand new Florence and the Machine album, Dance Fever. This is the brand new album, the fifth studio album from British indie Baroque pop band Florence and the Machine. Some people thought that from their last album, High as Hope, would be their last album, or at least their last album in a while, as Florence Welch had been talking about wanting to take a proper long hiatus from music, which lyrically on this album she addresses and hints towards how she wanted to be away from the music scene and away from performing for a while. But once COVID struck and once that had confined everybody indoors and prevented all artists from performing and being on stage, that really made Florence kind of go back on her thoughts, and that's one of the big takeaways from this album, one of the big thematical components of this album. Be careful what you wish for. But of course, this album, despite its connection to a lot of modern aesthetics and its lyrical connections, it's not a record that's as direct when it comes to that. Because yes, just like on a lot of other Florence and the Machine albums, you're getting spiritual, religious, folklore, and historical type undertones within the lyrics, and it's just as true on quite a few tracks on this new album. And the title of the album, Dance Fever, does correlate with a couple of the tracks on this album and how Florence's not new, but her new, more respectful relationship with dancing has really changed her as a person and has really helped her during some difficult times that we were all going through. And we have the song Choreomania, which lyrically references a cultural dance ritual where people would dance and dance and dance for so long until they literally go insane. And then we have the song Free, which was one of the singles for this album, where she expresses how dancing is her way to get out of her mode of anxiety, as the first half of this track has some fairly depressing and some slightly dark undertones with the lyrics and Florence Welch's own struggles with anxiety, until we get to the very end where the instrumental breaks out. We get less of the bass and more of the strings and the horns, and Florence screaming, "I'm free." Well, not screaming, but more just presenting it as boldly as she can. And that's one of the other things I like about this album more than some other Florence and the Machine albums, is that on a lot of songs, she's not vocalizing or singing like she's screaming at the top of her lungs just to try and get her message across, which is something that does drive me away from a few Florence and the Machine tracks, especially on some of their mid-2010s work, but on this album, that's really not the case. And I will admit that this was one of my most anticipated albums this year, after hearing singles like King and My Love, both two of the best singles I've ever heard this year. We have King, which opens up like a typical early Radiohead or U2 song, and then the second half we get more strings, more horn sections, more piano breaking out, and lyrically the song is an ultimate feminist track, expressing how, rather than wanting to be viewed in the common female stereotypes, she wants to be viewed within a more male stereotype, if that means she's going to be viewed in a more stronger light, hence a king. And then we have My Love, which instrumentally and sonically is a lot different from King. You have King, which is more indie folk and indie rock. This one is a blend of dance pop and Baroque pop, because yes, instrumentally there are a lot of nods to dance pop on this album, just like the title suggests, so it's not just coming from the lyrics here. And on this track, it's especially true. You have a lot of modern aesthetics of dance pop with the bass and drums, and then you also get the strings which pop in the background of the verse, and the shiny keys that pop in the chorus. And man, the chorus is just so insanely catchy and grand. So tell me where to put my love. So yeah, obviously with singles like this, and Free, which I also mentioned, I was very much looking forward to this album. And for the most part, I honestly think this is Florence and the Machine's best and most solid project since Ceremonials. So the album opens up with King and Free, the former which is a feminist type song, and the latter which is a song more personally directed towards Florence herself as she learns how to live with her struggles of anxiety and realizes that music and dancing is her best way out of it. We get to Choreomania, which sonically at the beginning is a little bit more low-key but becomes more grand and more advantageous when we get towards the end. We have the song Taking It Back, which, like the beginning of Choreomania, is a little bit low-key but kind of remains as low-key for the whole track. And while I do like it, Florence's vocals again shine through amazingly, the subtle organ tones we get as well, but I just feel like it's not quite enough to carry the entire track from start to finish. So yeah, not one of my favorite moments on the album, but thankfully, beyond this point, we get a whole heap of great tracks. We have the song Girls Against God, which sonically and instrumentally is fantastically arranged, fantastically produced, with the bass and the piano and the horns. The horns are just so good. But lyrically, the song suggests about Florence imagining this group of girls who have been angered by the restraints that the pandemic has put them through, and imagining them going against God, saying, why? Why, God? Why did you do this? Why did you put us in this? Which really encapsulated how Florence herself was feeling during this time, despite the fact that she kind of admits to maybe not praying, as Florence Welch has not really been come across as the most religious person in the world, but more hoping that the performance monster that she creates within this whole album can free her from being this rock star, this artist who a lot of people love when she goes on stage. She didn't want to be part of that anymore. But when COVID took that away from her, she wanted it back, and she was angry at God for that. Honestly, I think there are some tongue-in-cheek lyrics in this song, but I just gotta love the very somewhat satirical, but also very thematic and serious approach that this song takes, as we all went through that moment during COVID. We have the song Dream Girl Evil, which lyrically is a highlight for me on this album, as I like the way Florence approaches the idea of how a male partner would perceive a certain girl, how they want them, they perceive them being too good, too nice, but Florence does not like the standard the pressure that puts on them, as it makes them think that they have to keep this facade, this attitude going for so long, because as soon as their emotions kick in, as soon as they do something wrong, the male's just going to be blaming it on the monthly thing, and just blaming it on other stereotypical elements of females and their feelings. So instead, Florence suggests that, well, if you're always going to portray me as an angel, then I'd rather you portray me as a demon. But ultimately, the song is just her saying that she'd rather be treated as a human, and I gotta love it. And instrumentally, it's also a solid moment. At this point, we get the first interlude on this album, Prayer Factory, which I think is a solid enough interlude and does really contrast with the theme of the track that comes after, being Cassandra. Now, Cassandra is the name of a Greek mythological being who had the power to tell people's future, but then her husband put a curse on her, silencing her from this ability, and Florence so smartly coincides her being put away from the music industry, her not being able to perform despite her wishes. She contrasts that with what she was going through while in the pandemic, having to do things like doing the laundry and doing the dishes, stuff that she found boring and made her wish that she just could perform again. And it ties in well with the Prayer Factory interlude, because that song basically acts as a character, the character being possibly either God or the performance monster who grants her a wish in taking away this ability to be able to perform for a while, but not in a way that Florence kind of wanted. Because right after we have the next interlude, Heaven Is Here, which despite being an interlude and despite being less than 2 minutes, I still consider a highlight on this album. I think the backing vocals are great, the Spanish-inspired acoustic guitar chords layered throughout, and the ha that goes throughout is great, and lyrically it does kind of act as the second part of Cassandra, where she is now being offered to have her ability brought back, her ability to be able to perform brought back, and it ties in well with the next track, Daffodil. Now, sonically and lyrically. Overall, this song is a really big highlight on this album, not just lyrically, but also sonically. We get the song starting off with some more acoustic guitar driven, something a mix between Baroque pop and folk. Very simple, but luscious and gorgeously arranged. And then at the end, we break out some more heavier drums, which really represents how we were all feeling while being stuck in the pandemic. And lyrically, the song is about finding the positivity within these dark times we were in, trying to find the positivity, but struggling to, but then really being thankful to come to terms with it when we do receive it back. We have the song My Love, which once again, still one of my favorite songs on this album, one of my favorite singles this year, and lyrically the song is, well, it's a love song, what else can I say? And it also coincides with Florence's own confusion of not knowing what to do, because she knows that her love for music is a lot of what gets her through life. And given how she claims that during this song she was stuck in writer's block and it was during the pandemic, and that she wanted this song to be more acoustic and more mellow, it really does set an even more grand and more important tone for the song overall. Now, we get the final 3 tracks. Now, so far, I've been enjoying a heap of this album, and it has been sounding like one of my favorite albums of the year. But we get to the end of this album, and I kind of have mixed results. We have the third and final interlude, Restraint, which is definitely my least favorite interlude. The choking sounds that she's making just really come across as a little bit goofy and a tad bit creepy, in my opinion, and I don't really care for it. And then we have the song The Bomb, which is easily the most generic song on this whole album. It's just mostly a folk-driven song with some acoustic guitar. It's just really missing something. It's really lacking the sort of magic that the Machine really provides on a lot of songs, especially on this album. And lyrically, it's not really a highlight either. But thankfully, despite these 2 tracks, we do get a really good closing track with Morning Elvis, which has one of the most beautiful and memorable instrumentals on this whole album, with some classic Americana-infused guitar driving most of the track, with some elements of orchestral pop, and lyrically the song going back to a darker time in Florence Welch's life where she was struggling with alcoholism, and tying that into a story about her traveling, or I'm not sure if it's her or it's a character who is supposed to resemble her, and the trouble she went through, traveling to Memphis to tour, but not getting to see Elvis, being stuck in the hotel due to being hungover, and recognizing how much that really affected her outside of the stage. So yeah, I think it's a really solid closing to this album, not just because of the instrumental and because of the lyrics, but also because the mirror image it provides for this album. Because the song being named after Elvis Presley, with his nickname being The King, and then you have the opening track, which is called King. I don't know if this is a coincidence or what, but if it's not, then that's a really clever way to mirror this album. But if it is a coincidence, then good job. Good fucking job. And speaking of good fucking job, that's all I can say about this album, because I heavily enjoyed a great majority of this album. I think it's Florence and the Machine's best album since Ceremonials. It's well produced, well performed, well layered, well mastered. The lyrics are still there. Florence's songwriting. This album expresses absolutely no signs of her hitting songwriter's block, despite what she was talking about in interviews, and really does have me excited for what they're going to do next, hoping they continue to still make music, and that Florence isn't going back on wishing that she would stop making music, because honestly, the band here are coming out with some of their best music, and I just really hope that the fans are open-minded towards this and are loving this album as much as I am. So that's why I'm giving it a flat 8 out of 10. Well, thank you guys for watching this video. If you guys enjoyed, let me know a like, comment, subscribe, tell me what you thought of this album. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What was your favorite track of it? What was your least favorite track of it? How would you rank this among Florence and the Machine's other albums? Let me know. But until then, guys, this is RhinoRatesMusic signing out. Take care and have a good day. Bye-bye.